Can a journey through history exploring the roots of success provide a roadmap for personal achievement? In this week's episode of the Think and Grow Rich series of the podcast, Don Green, CEO of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, unravels the mysteries with Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Join us for an exploration of success, intuition, persistence, and the profound joy of giving.
Would you like to think and grow rich? If so, keep on listening. This podcast is dedicated to those who have found their way from fear to freedom and for those who are considering undertaking this amazing journey. This is the Courage to Be podcast, and I am your host, Tanya Vasallo. Before we get into this episode, I'm thrilled to share that I'm hosting a series on how people's lives have been influenced by the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. If you'd like to learn and apply how to think and grow rich, go to the show notes to get some wonderful free resources and join the Courage to Be community. I look forward to being your guide and mentor so you can transform your life.
Welcome back to the Courage to Be, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And we're continuing with the series based off of the book of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And today we have Don Green, the CEO of the Napoleon Hill Foundation. And I'm so excited to have you here today, Don. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I always enjoy talking, especially when someone mentions Think and Grow Rich. And that's the one to buy. That's the 1937.
Thank you for that clarification, because today we were doing the Spanish study group, and one of the other coaches mentioned in there to get our copy through the foundation versus on Amazon. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have copies of it. Are you talking about Spanish copies?
Yeah.
I mean, we have on hand, but yes, I think that can be arranged. Yeah, because there's so many different issues of it. There are, but in 1960, Penguin was publishing a book, and they asked Dr. Hill to cut it down to a pocket size. And I've got the book that he used to edit it. He marked out a lot of pages. So it's the pocket size one. It covers all the basics, but it's 120 some pages less than this one. This one's 386 pages. And this one was copied from Napoleon Hill's personal copy, which is in our files. We even went back to the original copy. The original copy had on it for men and women who resent poverty because it's the middle of the Depression. But later they took that off and they put up 2.5 million copies sold, 5 million copies sold. But we went back to the original cover and had it designed as close as we could to what the original cover looked like.
That's good to know. So we all can see. For those of you that are just listening to the podcast and not watching it on YouTube, it's the one that's the orange one. And you'll see it on the cover. So thank you for that clarification, Don. Let me ask you, how did your journey start with Think and Grow Rich?
Well, I read it in high school. I don't remember what year, but I read everything. I fell in love with two girls that worked in the library. We didn't have books in the home. We had a Bible, but we didn't have books. I mean, we didn't have running water. So, your parents aren't going to go out and buy books when they don't have water in the house or a bathroom. So I like to read, and I read and read. And then when I found out that Napoleon Hill was from the same area that I was living in Virginia, Wise County, Virginia, I just was enthused for reading it, and I absorbed the material. And I not only read him, I don't want to boast or anything, but I try to read everything that he read. In other words, he read Samuel Smiles. Samuel Smiles wrote a book in 1859. He's British or Scottish, and it's called Self-Help Psychology. I believe it is the first self-help book ever written, unless you count the Bible. But Hill read him. He was before him. Orson Swett Martin. That middle name is S-W-T-T. Martin, M-A-R-D-E-N. But he must have done 40 books. I think I've collected them all. He had a law degree and a medical degree from one of the Ivy League schools, Harvard and Yale, I believe. But anyway, he wrote books like Every Man a King, Pushing to the Front, all self-help, and Hill read him, and Every Man a King. But the difference in him, and Hill went out and interviewed people. He wouldn't go anywhere for $100 and travel, and he promoted. But he read a book called by John Dewey, published about 1910, I think. John Dewey on How to Think. He read The Theory of Compensation by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I've read all those people that he read, and most of them I read much more than once. So, but it meant a lot to me because I started developing my attitude. You know, Tanya, if you're around me, I can almost do nothing, okay? Honest to God. My dad was a mechanic, electrician in the coal mines. He could fix anything. He fixed our old farm tractor, his car. Nobody ever serviced his car. He did all that. He could fix anything. I can fix nothing. I can't hang up. They won't trust me to hang a picture. I don't have any technical skills whatsoever, okay? But I have found out that I'm creative. My daughter, my only child, she said, Daddy, you're a cluttered genius, meaning I got books stacked up on my floor because my wife passed away about 9 years ago. We was married 54 years. But I have books all around. And I just finished another book and getting it typed now because I wrote out longhand. But I said, well, cluttered genius, that's what they referred to as Winston Churchill. I said, well, you got at least one of the two words right anyway. I could do the cluttered part real easy. But I guess I said, I've been here, this is 24th year. I published more than 100 books.
That is amazing, Don. But let me ask you, when you said that you went to the library, first off, we have to give kudos to the pretty librarians. So you never know if you liked the women at the library, the librarians that got you inspired to get you reading. But how old were you? Were you in high school? What age?
I was in high school, 15. And we had two girls, and her name was Huffstetler. They were twins. They were redheaded with freckles, and they were older than me. And they were young ladies. And they worked the library. Everybody had a study hall, where you had one period about an hour that you didn't have class, that you could study and work on your lessons. So their study hall period, they worked in the library. One worked in the morning, and then one worked later on in the day. And I couldn't tell them apart, but I knew they worked different times. So we had a librarian was an old maid, and Lord, she protected those books. She had rules. I mean, you couldn't check out but one book at a time. Sure, we had a real library, thousands of books in it. And basically, I read the biographies. I read Lincoln or Franklin, anything I could find on people that had been successful. And so I would go in there every morning and I would get me a book and check it out. Then I'd take it to my locker. Then the next time I went by there sometime after lunch, after I leave the cafeteria, I'd go by there again, and the other one would be working. And because I knew they just work one period. And so I'd get one, I'd check out another book. I know they noticed what I was doing because they'd always said, I thought to myself, poor Miss Bard, kill them both if she knew what they was doing. I mean, she protected those books. But the thing was, like, especially on the weekend and in the winters where you wasn't rough winters, that I could read more than one book. I mean, the lady we're talking about, she told me the other day, Don, our friend Ron Hash, he teaches writing at West Carolina University, said he's got a book out, a novel called Caretaker, said it's really a good story. So it just came out. So I normally read so many novels, except like Ron Hash is a good writer. So I ordered a book and I read it tonight. It come in. It's about 250 pages. So I do read a lot. But the girls, I would wonder what happened to them, but they were both real pretty redheads, and I could not tell them apart. And anyway, that was my journey. But one summer, I think about maybe I was in the 10th grade, we were, my two brothers, and a man gave us his truck, and he took us up to West Virginia, at Williamson, West Virginia. It's across the Tug River, just out of Kentucky. And he had bought out of coal mines, which had been worked out. I mean, they got the coal that they could get to. But it left the steel rails in the mines. The coal is hauled out of the mines on little cars that hold 2 or 3 tons. And they pulled out with ponies, or a few of them had electric motors, but most of them pulled out with little ponies. And or the rails was, and it's expensive, it still was, even back then, it was about $300 a ton. I don't know what it is today. But we were given wrenches, WD-40, a lubricant, in case someone was rusted, and hacksaws. They mesh the rails together and bolt them together, and so they could just continue on up. And they run from 15 to 20 some feet in length. And it was just, we pull them out. And of course, today they would put someone in jail that would work kids in such a condition, but we never got hurt or anything. But that's when I got the lesson. It came to me. just like someone was speaking. Don, all those old people that's like your daddy, they make a living, they feed their families working in the mines, but it's a killing them. And these people you're reading in the books, they're using their minds to make money. And I bound and determined I was going to get an education. And the good Lord blessed me with creativity. I can look at anything and compose a book out of it. And I don't even claim to be a writer. And I think every one I do is better than the last one. And I know the one that I just finished over the weekend, and I have to have it retyped so I can edit it from a Word document. But it's on vision. It's on vision. And of course, there's not a lot written on vision. I mean, it's simply seeing where we want to be rather than where we are. I mean, people on poverty, what do they think about? What do they see? They see poverty. What do they get? They get poverty. I'm trying to teach them that the title I use, that they could see themselves where they would like to be and act as if they were already there. And I think I got it across real good. I only mentioned it to two publishers. One was a visitor from Brazil, and I was writing on it, and we made a deal on it just on my word. And he's done 101 of the books of Napoleon Hill that comes out of our bit, and he'll do this one also. And then I have a publisher for it in English. Probably won't come out till spring, but I really, really enjoyed doing it. And the fact is, I'm working on 2 other ones, which will be easy. They're journals. I got a call yesterday asked to put quotes, about 40 quotes at the top of the page, and they'd pay for all of it, and we'd do a journal. In other words, there'll be a Hill quote at the top of it, and then you can journal. You basically have a page with lines on it. You can do what you intend to do and play out your plans and so forth. And I'm going to do 2 of them. I got one of them done last night, believe it or not, just 40 some quotes from Napoleon Hill. And then I'm going to do one on Winston on W. Clement Stone.
That's fantastic, Don. I mean, the fact that you've written 100 books, I want to go back a little bit on this, because you're talking about your creativity. And I think that's one of the, tapping into one of your higher faculties, imagination, and creativity is so important. Can you talk to us a little bit more about creativity, how you tap into, and for anyone that's listening that doesn't consider themselves creative, what would you say to that? Because they might be saying like, oh, well, he's creative, but I don't have that, like I'm a lawyer, or I'm a doctor, or I'm a miner, like someone that they don't think. But I'm a big believer that we all have creativity in us, and it's a matter of evolving, tapping into it and finessing it. So what's your take on creativity, your process, and what tips could you give to someone that's not considering themselves creative?
Well, creativity of vision, it's imagination. And Albert Einstein said our imagination was more powerful than knowledge. But as kids, we imagine. But I think the parents are guilty without realizing it. The kids have imagination. They think it can do absolutely anything. But then the parents kind of don't want to see them fail, don't want to see them be embarrassed, don't want to see them hurt. And I can give you all kinds of examples. When my daughter was graduating high school, I was a bank president for 18 years. And in the office next to me was one of the loan officers. And I recognized the man she was waiting on. She was financing a Ford vehicle for him. And I recognized him, and I thought, well, I'm a bank president, I can speak to the customers. And so I had saw him at the Little League games. I'd been president of the Little League for years, raised money for him. And I only have a daughter, no sons, but she liked the boys and the baseball, and we kind of followed them as I was president of Little League. And so I just asked him, I said, your sons are graduating with my daughter. Where is he going to college? He's not going nowhere. It's too expensive. And I said, it's not as expensive as ignorance. But see, if we read Viktor Frankl's books, Man's Search for Meaning, that was locked up, he said if we knew why we wanted something other, we could find out how to get it. And of course, we know the story of him. He wanted to survive, to meet his family. He had a doctorate degree, and he was working on things, and he wanted to look forward to that. So he kept a piece of glass hid. He cut his beard so he wouldn't look as old, because when you couldn't service them, they put you in chambers. They kept about 10% of them to, this dispose of the bodies and the garbage and other stuff. And sometimes somebody might escape or try to. They'd go days and not feed them. So he would get the potato peelings. If they would throw away, he'd get the potato peelings, hide them in the dirt. And then when it didn't feed them, he'd dig them potato peelings out and wipe the dirt off of them and eat them. That's how he survived. But so many people, if your child gets up and says, Mom, I want to go to Harvard. You really want to go to Harvard? Yeah, Mom, I want to go to Harvard. Now we got to figure it out how we're going to get you there. If we know why we want to do something other, then we can discover the how. And me, as in business, as a bank president, I didn't need anything else. The salary was fantastic, and no debts, and they paid my country club dues where I play golf. They furnished me a new car, they had a big old life insurance policy on me, and they paid me fantastic. But I was always things coming to me. For example, I had about 35 suits when you would never come into the bank, and I apologize for not having a sport coat on because it's cold out. I wore a heavy coat today. But I had about 35 suits, and I never took a coat off when I was in the bank. I had a suit on. I don't mean sports clothes. I mean suits, gray, blue, pinstripes, and whatever, tailor-made suits. And so if Tanya or someone comes in the bank, they could just look. They could tell who the president of the bank was. I bought a suit. The first one I had tailor-made, which I paid for in payments when I was making about $75 a week. I found out who Tennessee Eastman Kodak, the film people, they were located in the same town I was. And I asked, who makes them guys suits? They said Sobel's. It was a Jewish men's store. And I went in there and had one made. But right above the cash register, they had a sign up. If you are going to be a success, you must first dress the part. In other words, act as if. People don't go into bank and some little old lady or man and go in there and leave someone with their money with someone that looks like a bum. You send out an image, but and that reason I'm coming to you, you said creativity, things that can be done. I can't fold a shirt. I've got a lady that takes care of my clothes. I don't have any talents whatsoever, but she does a wonderful job. But anyway, I wasn't satisfied with the suits. The dry cleaners, we had little establishments. It's old. You could smell them. They were just outdated. So I got to thinking what I could do. And I took Inc. magazine, INC magazine. It's basically for startups, whatever. And I saw an ad in there. It was $39.95 for a little manual on how to run a successful dry cleaning operation. I ordered that thing and read it. And it said, that women especially would like to drive in so they didn't have to get the kids out of the car seat. In other words, they could just circle like I do a bank and get waited on, and some other things. And so I told the partner, I said, we got some land down there at the red light. I said, I'd like to put a dry cleaning establishment there. Do you think it'll go? Yeah, it'll go. I'm sure it'll go. I said, they need one. I said, what we got here, the service is pitiful. And so he laid out the plans and drew it, and some of his people got the thing built. It was just fantastic. But we did things that and I guess it's being creative. If Tanya dropped her clothes off her, we would when you picked them up, we'd give you a bag, a polyester bag with a drawstring on it. It said, Tanya likes her blouses lightly starched, and so all of what you want done on them. And so and the name of the place was The Cleaners. So if you tell your husband, would you drop this off at the Cleaners? That was us, The Cleaners. We never give a coupon. We charge more than the other people done. We never run an advertising, but we use creativity. And I projected that we make money in the first year, and I think it was about the 8th month or something like that. And we made a lot of money on it. And I don't mean it to brag or anything. We had it 17 or 18 years. Walmart come along and purchased the land behind us, and we sold that little spot there for $2 million. But then I'm working with the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and I didn't want to have to keep up and do the payroll and so forth of another one. And so I sold the equipment to someone else. But you could just see things, And for example, another one was cable TV. If people, I don't watch that much television, but my wife did. Well, they had a monopoly, basically. They just keep raising your prices. And, I think today you can pay $200 some over here for $250 maybe for whatever. So I got to thinking about it and asking some questions. What we did, we built a cable where there was already one done in the town, but we didn't borrow no money. We built it and we charged basically about one half of what they's charging. Again, we never advertised, we never give no coupons, but we did give them a price. That was what was attractive. So if we signed someone up and all of a sudden they're paying half, getting the same 55, and then it was 55 channels, that someone else is paying twice. They hook it up. They're going to tell their neighbor next door. They're going to tell them just one right after the other. We did one town. They tried to force us out and buy us out, and we just laughed at them. And then the second town. And then we made so much money after 17 or 18 years. I said, guys, this has been a tremendous deal, but this kind of money, we get cash on the thing. So we sold it. But I could just see things that you have to risk. I remember I bought stock when I was in the banking business, and I guess I did those things. I never really explained them to my wife. Men, they often don't discuss things that they all do. But my wife, she said, I'd be afraid to buy stock. I said, why? She said, well, a lot of them lose money. I said, Phil, honey, the biggest risk in life is taking no risk at all. And so she saw what I was doing after a few years, and we was in a Cracker Barrel restaurant one time, which she likes. I don't, it's a chain over here. Home cooked food seemed like. So we was eating in one time in Tennessee, and she said, well, you're always buying stock. Why don't you buy Cracker Barrel? I said, well, we don't have that kind of money. I've got all kinds of stock. I said, well, how much? You pay the bills. I said, how much? Or we didn't know nothing. I'm talking about utilities or. I said, how much can you spare the checking account? Oh, she said, a couple $1,000s. So I bought $2,000 worth of Cracker Barrel stock. And of course, that was a long time ago. That $2,000 worth of stock is worth about $90,000 today. And I was getting about $8,000 your dividends off of 2,000 investments. So
Love it. I love it. I love it. We're going to take a little pause here and be right back. This past week at the Napoleon Hill Institute, we've been hosting the Prosperity Summit based off of Napoleon Hill and Reverend Ike's teachings. Don Green was one of our speakers, amongst many others, including stars from the movie The Secret. It was truly amazing. If you'd like to make a shift in your life, take your money income to the next level, make sure to book a call with me in the next couple of weeks. My time is limited and I don't have many spots left for a complimentary one-on-one call. I'll take people on a first-come, first-served basis. If you want to see change, book your call by clicking on the link in the show notes. I look forward to supporting you in your journey. So yeah, I want to go back to this whole idea of creativity, Don, and just how amazing you are and connected with the creative process, because, like just with the different businesses that you've created, spotting opportunities, whether it's investing in the stock market or whether it's creating these different businesses and not having to do advertising and just tapping into that creativity. How do you do that process? Does it come automatically to you, like you're getting ideas in the shower, or do you carve out time to just connect with your intuition? How does it work for you?
I think a first requirement is you have to be at peace with yourself. If you've got any negativity, greed, hatred, things that would distract from, if you've got any negativities, you got to be at peace with yourself. And you can call it meditating, thinking, or whatever, but messages will come to you if you'll just stop and think. Albert Schweitzer, the famous doctor in Africa, they interviewed him before he died, and they asked him, said, what's wrong with people today, Dr. Schweitzer? He said, they don't think, they don't. And I've had people tell us, we did a lot of other things. I did spring water and developed land, a whole bunch of other things. It came to me at an early age. I visited one time, went on vacation one time in a place had poisonous snakes on exhibit, and I learned how to catch them and put them up, and I made a lot of money as a youngster. I ran we called it a snake pit every summer, and then I added souvenirs to it. But I learned some of those things in a little bit of travels I did, and I charged a quarter and made homemade signs and put them up and down on the highways. But I think the first requirement is you got to be at peace with yourself and just, get quiet and just imagine, you got to think what people can need. Or it's two things drives a market. It's things that people need, food, clothing, and shelter, so forth. It's also what people want. People they want a hula hoop or they want something else. It's not necessarily they need it. but they have a desire for it. So if you can fulfill somebody's desire, you can make money. But I think
that's amazing, Don. And I think that part of the problem nowadays is that we get too distracted and we're not thinking, like you're saying, we're bombarding ourselves with information. So I do appreciate you mentioning that we have to be at peace with ourselves and that we have to think and allow. And it sounds like you have a good connection with psychology of other people, of understanding what people think, what people need. And that's what has given you your success. Would you attribute that to your success, understanding, empathizing?
Yeah, absolutely. I love psychology. And while I didn't major, I majored in accounting and business, but I read a lot of psychology. And like Maxwell Maltz, book on cybernetics, which means steer the mind. It's a wonderful book to read. That how our mind is, it's the last undiscovered territory is our human mind. But we know a lot of things. I mean, like the creativity, it will come to you, and the idea that, you read Steve Jobs and so forth. But once you have those ideas, then you have to develop the other qualities of plans. And then you have to take risks. You have to get started. But then you also have to develop persistence. If you have an idea, you keep asking yourself why you want something. Why do you want something another? And you'll get persistence. You may not have all the answers. You may need people's influence or money. You may need their influence or knowledge. But I found out a long time ago, people are successful. They're the most accessible to get to. If you want something done, just find a busy person because they've got a record of getting things done. And I think that's it. And don't look at something that don't turn out right as a failure. It's only a failure when you quit. Things that don't work out right is lessons. I could tell you some, but we don't have that kind of time. I've had some dailies of the lessons, but I learned to laugh about them. Dawn, you wasn't as smart as you thought you was. You need to do this or talk to someone. But the main thing is you don't quit and never give up if you have an idea and pursue it. If it takes longer than what you thought, or if you need more help than what you thought. But the main thing, most people have ideas. Ideas themselves are worthless if you don't do something with the ideas.
If you don't pursue them, absolutely. And this is one of my last questions, Dom, because it wraps up with you being so prolific of writing 100 books. I mean, that's taking your creativity, adding that persistence, like you're saying, asking the why, and then taking action and doing it. What is that process? The idea comes to you and do you immediately take action with it? Like, how do you go about that? Because all of us can have a ton of ideas, but how many of us are pursuing them?
Mine is kind of bit, if I've got an idea, I want to do a book on, well, for example, I did one on millionaire mindset, which is sold real well. We make good royalties on it. But I was asked to write the book, but of course I was a bank president 18 years and I've been an investor and an entrepreneur. But if I'm doing a book like I'm doing Vision, okay, and I'm thinking, gosh, that's such an important subject. I was going to my daughter's place in Hilton Head, South Carolina, going across the interstate mountain, Tennessee, North Carolina. There's a big church over the big wall, and it's you greet you from the interstate, hundreds of feet away. Where there is no vision, my people perish. Job, straight out of the Bible. We must have vision to see not where we are, but where we want to be. And so I think vision. What would come under vision? Well, one of them would be plans. One of them would be asked the question, what do you want? Persistence, and so forth. And those, I would consider those chapter headings that I need to cover about maybe 8 or 10 different items that would fit into creativity. And then I start writing with a positive attitude. I would write and try to explain that if you're going to be successful, why you got to maintain a positive attitude and so forth. And, first thing I know, bingo, I got a book put together. You can't say, everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a book in them, but you got to do something other with it. Everybody wants to write a book, but you got to schedule yourself as saying, for example, a book, we'll say 50,000 words. If you do a book, 5,000 words a month, 10 months, you got 50,000 words. But if you don't start, you say, this is December, and you say, well, I was going to start that book in July, and I've not done nothing. You got to start. You got to start and use persistence. And first thing you know, you got yourself a working manuscript. The title may get changed, and you get it into a word process, and you read it, and you go back and say, that's not exactly right, and scratch it out, and you write again. Usually I go through a book about 3-4 times before I'm comfortable enough to give it to the publisher, though I know I always get a publisher, but I want it to be a good piece. I don't want them to have to do a bunch of work on it because I want to make it as easy for them as I can. It will determine how much they're willing to pay me the next time. If I get a book to them, it's basically pretty much ready to print, then they're a good market for the next one.
That's great. And then what would be your process? You say you have to start and you have to schedule it. What's a day in Don Green's life look like?
Well, I got on a cruise on January 11th, and I was asked to speak on time management. We accomplished so much more. I can tell you a story. I was having dinner one night with my wife. This is years ago, and she had volunteered to do work at the hospital. Her dad was 85, and the little girl pulled out in front of me, and he had ended up on dialysis. And I don't know exactly what to do, but when they're on dialysis, they can't get them moved. So they have a glass of water, they want some orange juice, they want something other. So we was out eating on one weekend. The ladies in the table next to us was at round tables in the table across from us. These ladies were talking to my wife, and they said, Phil, they sold the bank. Said, what's Don working at now? Of course, I worked for the foundation. I booked one Friday, and then Monday, I was already on the board. There was no lapse in employment. And she said, Don's never worked at nothing. He always gets somebody else to do it for him. Of course, she had a sense of humor, but I'm afraid there was a whole lot of truth to it. You can accomplish so much more. I can't get someone to do the writing for me, but I can get someone to do the typing. I can even get it edited if I want to. I get someone to put it into a Word document so I can go back and make changes and so forth. And I can get other people to do those things. Just like that big old case that's coming, there's 6 guys moving that thing in and uncrating it and so forth. And I wouldn't touch it because it's got glass walls and sides in it, and sliding glass doors and glass shelves in it. I would be a tragedy if I tried to do it. So I got somebody else to do it for me. You're at the college, and they're always so good. And I've got another point. I got to go.
Thank you, Don. This has been fabulous. What's one last word you would leave for our listeners of how to live a life with more courage?
Well, learn to be a giver. We were born to be givers. That's just a plain and simple fact, because there's a verse in the Bible, and I'm not a preacher. It says, them that give freely will be made richer. Them that withhold will suffer. And I think that's what it means, that we're supposed to help other people. Pleasures is a nice car, the clothes, the gold Rolex, all those things are nice. They're pleasures. But happiness is helping someone else be happy. And that's it.
I love it.
If you want to be happy, just make somebody else happy.
Thank you so much, Don. That was beautiful. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your wisdom. And I look forward to our paths crossing again. Take care. Have a wonderful day.
Appreciate you very much for the work you do, okay?
Thank you, Don.
I am so grateful that you joined me today. If you enjoyed it, there's one thing I'd like you to do. Click on the follow button so you don't miss a single episode. Leave me a rating and a review, and please share. As my way to thank you, email us a screen grab of your review at the email in the show notes, and we will send you a free Crafting Your Future guided visualization, which is so simple to do with outstanding results. It will empower you and give you the confidence to attract and create the life you've always desired. See you in our next episode.